When we think about the Pacific Theater in World War II, our minds usually jump to these huge, epic battles. But what about all the time in between? We're going to take a look at the daily lives of North Carolinian soldiers through their own letters and diaries to see how they actually lived, how they survived, and how they managed to build a little piece of home in some of the most remote places on Earth.
So yeah, forget any postcard image you might have of a tropical paradise. That idea was shattered pretty much the moment these men stepped ashore. This quote from Captain John F. Mallard, writing home in May of '42, just says it all. This was no vacation. For so many of these guys from North Carolina, this was a world they literally couldn't have imagined. I mean, take Daniel Price from Mount Olive. He said later that when he arrived on Guadalcanal, it was the first time in his life he'd ever even seen an island, let alone lived on one. The shock had to have been just immediate and overwhelming.
And the gap between what they might have imagined and what they actually got, it was huge. Instead of sunshine and sightseeing, they were dealing with this constant low-level danger. The jungle wasn't just thick with plants, it was hiding Japanese soldiers, sure, but also the leftovers of battle, grenades with tripwires, unexploded bombs. It was a dangerous place even when things were quiet.
So what did home even look like in this new world? Well, Captain Mallard tells us. Men were living in these native houses that had dirt floors and thatched roofs, or in tents that they had to literally carve a space for out of the jungle. Privacy? That was a luxury that just did not exist. This was way beyond just roughing it.
But this is where the story gets really incredible. Because faced with all of this, these servicemen didn't just put up with it. They got creative. They used whatever skills and materials they could scrounge up to build back a little bit of normalcy, a little piece of comfort.
And their creativity was just astounding. A Marine Corps mechanic named Wallace Littlejohn wrote in his diary exactly how they built a working shower. It was a brilliant little piece of engineering, really. They built a platform, put a barrel of water on top, and then ran the water into a bucket with a bunch of holes punched in the bottom. Simple, but absolutely genius. And you can just feel the impact it had. That shower wasn't just about getting clean. Like Littlejohn wrote, just being able to put on clean clothes afterwards. It was a huge boost to his morale. It was about feeling human again, in a place that was anything but. A small victory, but a powerful one. And this kind of resourcefulness was happening all over the place. You had guys turning discarded airplane fuel tanks into boats so they could cruise around the lagoons. Captain Raymond Mulkey was so proud of pouring this perfectly level, pretty and white concrete floor for his new mess hall. And Captain Mallard, the same guy who hated the island, he still figured out how to string a radio antenna between two coconut trees just so he could catch the sound of swing music from back home. All of this created this really strange, kind of surreal existence. Life became this constant balancing act between mortal danger on one hand and this desperate search for simple pleasures on the other. And a lot of the time, both were happening at the exact same time. The biggest source of stress, especially for the guys who weren't right on the front lines, was the threat of Japanese air raids. The warning sirens could go off at any time, day or night. It just wore people down, made real sleep almost impossible, and kept everyone completely on edge. But, people have this incredible way of adapting to almost anything. Herman Bolton of the Army Air Forces wrote home from the Marianas and described the anti-aircraft fire as being beautiful, like county fair fireworks. It's a really jarring thing to read, but it's this honest look at how something terrifying can almost become normal when you see it every day. So even when they tried to relax, those moments of peace were never a sure thing. The war was always, always right there. I think this quote from John B. Graham is one of the most vivid things I've ever read about the war. Just try to picture it. You're sitting on a bench they probably made themselves, trying to watch a movie, but every 5 minutes, the entire screen is just washed out by the yellow flash of a massive artillery battery firing right behind you. The sound is completely gone. It's just an amazing snapshot of the absolute absurdity of their reality. It really makes you ask, doesn't it? How do you possibly build a normal routine or find any joy when your entire world is just defined by chaos? Well, for a lot of these men, the answer came from thousands and thousands of miles away. Because more than any makeshift shower, more than a game of baseball, or even hearing swing music, the one thing that truly kept these men going was their connection to home, and that connection arrived in the mail. See, every single service member, it didn't matter what their rank was or what their job was, they all shared this deep, aching homesickness.
Mail call wasn't just part of the schedule. It was a ritual. Getting a letter was proof that the world you were fighting for still existed and that you were still remembered there.
And that brings us right back to Captain Mallard. In this incredibly raw and emotional letter, he just pleaded with his wife. He explained how he saw other men getting 3 or 4 letters every single mail call while he got none. And he ends with this unforgettable line. It shows you just how much those simple pieces of paper meant. They were everything.
So in the end, after all the fighting, all the boredom, the ingenuity, and the fear, the lesson these North Carolinians brought back with them was this deep, powerful appreciation for all the things they used to take for granted: safety, comfort, and most of all, family. There really is no place like home.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. If you were suddenly dropped into a world with none of your usual comforts, what's the first piece of home you would fight to recreate? Would it be something physical, like a hot shower? Or something emotional, like your favorite music? Or would it be a connection, a letter from someone you love? It's a pretty powerful question when you think about what really makes us feel human.